Primal Rage exploded onto the arcade scene in 1994, courtesies of Atari. Yes, it was another blood-filled fighter with stiff gameplay trying to cash in on the Mortal Kombat craze of the time. Unlike many other games of this type though, Atari decided to go with dinosaurs rather than humans. The game takes place in a post-apocalyptic version of the Earth called Earth. Or at least I think it's meant to be Earth. You get to control one of several large beasts that battle each other to determine the fate of the planet. Matches feature many of the conventions of fighting games from the era, including special moves and gory finishing moves.
Everywhere, streak asteroids of burning rock and fire. Blue skies burn with the fury of the great fire. All around, I hear streets cry out loud, mountains rumble. As buildings explode, my home erupts. This world would never again be the same. New Earth would rise up from the rubble, out of the smoky landscape. The cataclysm awakes the sleeping giants from ancient worlds.
The 3DO version, developed by Probe, features much smaller sprites and less animation than the arcade original. However, it does include all new, if not a little crappy these days, CG intros for each character, as well as the introduction. Playability wise, it's Primal Rage. Funnily enough, I found it easier to pull off the moves on this 3DO version than the arcade. depending on how good your gaming rig was at the time, this MS-DOS port featured 3 different editions of the game. One for systems with 4, 8 or 16 megabytes of memory, each with increasing fidelity to the arcade game. In fact, this version seems to be the arcade game in some parts. The options screen is identical to that found on the arcade's dip switch setting screen. Playing the DOS port on low-spec PCs isn't much fun, but run it on a system with 16 megabytes of memory and you'll have a game pretty close to the arcade original. You may have noticed that the sound effects are different, mind you. This Game Boy port is missing the character Vertigo and all the background humans. The changes just don't stop there either. Each character now only has 2 attacks, 4 special moves and 1 fatality. Not that it makes any difference to me, I can't play this game no matter what system it's on. Game Gear fans will be happy that their version of Primal Rage makes a pretty good attempt at keeping the arcade feel by including the introduction and a few more options to play with over the Game Boy release. The main game, however, is just the same as the Game Boy, but now with colour and blood. It also has the same 3 music tracks found in the Game Boy version, belonging to Armageddon, Diablo and Chaos. Drive port is based upon version 1.7 of the arcade, meaning the new special moves and additional fatalities introduced in revision 2.3 were not present. It's not all bad news though. It does have more animation than the SNES version, which is coming up later on, but does suffer with less vibrant colours. For some bizarre reason, the SNES port wasn't handled by Probe, but by Bitmasters. It's also quite a shoddy version of Primal Rage. The whole game moves as if it's got arthritis. Just look at how it seems to shake whenever you move. It's also censored quite a bit, as you'd expect with Nintendo. Chaos's golden shower fatality is missing, as is most of the blood. Bitmasters couldn't even get the gameplay right with this port. I mean, Primal Rage isn't exactly the greatest 2D fighter out there, but it should play better than this port does. Based upon the Mega Drive port and still missing the arcade's introduction, the 32X version symbolises everything wrong with Western developers when it came to making games for the hardware. The 32X port could have been very close to the arcade version. Oh well, at least it has more animation, bigger sprites and cleaner sound than any of the other cartridge ports. It seems I'm always ragging on the Amiga. I don't do it because I dislike the system, honestly. It's just that many arcade ports are bloody awful on it, and Primal Rage is no exception. It's most likely the worst version so far, worse than the Game Boy and Game Gear ports when it comes to playability. Oh, and then there's the loading. Oh my, the loading is unbearable. You need to change discs 3 to 4 times between each round. Yes, I know you could install the game, but what if you never had a hard disk drive? Well, at least there are new sound effects and screen shaking effects. Doesn't take your eyes away from the small sprites though. The PlayStation port suffers from long loading times compared to other CD versions, plus has smaller sprites with less colour than its main rival, the Sega Saturn. It's not a bad port by any means, but sadly it's the one most people are familiar with.
They invade our world to conquer, to rule the whole human race. They rise.
The Sega Saturn port is much like the PlayStation, except it loads quicker and the sprites are larger and have more colours. It also has the CD intros before each battle, just like the 3DO version. But maybe that's because the 3DO version was actually based upon the Saturn version.
His land was hidden no longer.
Rage.
let's take a look at all those versions of Primal Rage running side by side. Which one do you think is the best?